Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Animas Corporation, providing insulin delivery products for people living with diabetes and part of the OneTouch family. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes with the world's first continuous glucose monitoring system that sends glucose readings directly to your compatible smart device. Live life on your own terms with Dexcom. Hey, it's Stacey. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. I'm not a doctor. And if you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, Happy New Year! Let's start 2017 off in a big way with actor Victor Garber, currently starring in the TV show Legends of Tomorrow. The actor you know from Alias, Titanic, Argo, The First Wives Club, and so much more, was diagnosed with type 1 as a child.
When I was a kid, I was 12, and I wasn't embarrassed by it, but I was very private about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to know, and I thought I'm a kind of a freak, and that has changed, and I'm so grateful for that.
We talk about how much has changed, how Garber manages diabetes these days, why he's decided to speak up about type 1, and a lot of fun behind-the-scenes showbiz stories that have nothing to do with diabetes, plus 2 big FDA approvals right at the end of 2016. It all starts now on Diabetes Connections. Happy New Year, first show of 2017. And after a whirlwind 2016, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the new year brings us. A lot of diabetes tech in development, waiting for approval. And of course, a lot of amazing people to talk to on the podcast. I'm Stacey Sims, and if you're new to the show, welcome. Diabetes Connections aims to educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes through interviews and conversations with advocates, authors, and newsmakers in our community, athletes and celebrities pushing the limits of T1D, as well as everyday people who don't have their own network shows or Olympic medals. My son was diagnosed with type 1 10 years ago. I'm a former radio and TV local anchor and host, and while my perspective is that of a parent, I hope that this show appeals to everyone touched by diabetes. We don't just talk about the family, the parent, the child perspective. I talk to a lot of adults with type 1, that sort of thing. I'm also a certified Broadway geek, so talking to Victor Garber was a dream come true, and he was wonderful. It was an honor to talk to him, and it was so much fun. If you like what you hear on Diabetes Connections, please take a second to subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to. That will make sure you never miss an episode. If you're listening on Twitter or Facebook or the homepage, diabetes-connections.com, hey, that's great too. The website has all of the information and access to past episodes as well. I hope you had a great holiday break and you were able to spend some time with friends and family. We went on the trip of a lifetime. We were celebrating my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary, Mom and Dad, and thank you for an incredible experience. It was so much fun. And I'm going to go into more detail on this next week. We're actually going to be talking about adventure and travel with type 1. So it'll be better then to talk about our experience, because I know you want to hear from Victor Garber. But I will say that diabetes wasn't perfect, but it was great overall. This was kind of an adventure trip. So we snorkeled every day. We went on hikes. We gave Benny some independence to hang out with other kids on the tour with us. They were with an adult guide, but not with us. One crazy high from a bent cannula, one crazy overnight low. Other than that, man, hard work and a lot of luck pays off. Of course, there were ups and downs, and I'll talk about that on another episode when we talk more about travel with type 1. Quick word from our sponsor, from Animas. Choosing an insulin pump is an important decision. I feel very fortunate that our certified diabetes educator really worked with us to educate us about all of our options and listen to what we wanted in an insulin pump. After 9 years with Animas, I know it was the right decision. Benny was 2 when we started with Animas. He just turned 12. and we continue to be impressed with everything, including the stellar customer service. That's why I'm so glad to be able to tell you about our experience and why I'd really urge you learn more about Animas insulin pumps. Just go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Animas, part of the OneTouch family logo. As I mentioned, 2 big FDA approvals came through right at the end of the year, just a week or so ago, really. And I just want to briefly tell you about them. I'll have more information at diabetes-connections.com. One for Animas, one for Dexcom. We'll start with Animas, the OneTouch Vibe Plus insulin pump and continuous glucose monitoring system got FDA approval and Health Canada authorization for patients age 2 and older living with diabetes. I am reading from the press release here. The OneTouch Vibe Plus is the first and only insulin pump integrated with Dexcom G5 mobile CGM technology, enabling patients to see their glucose reading at all times on the pump or using the Dexcom G5 app on their smartphone. End of press release. Now just me talking about it. What this means is that if you've been using the Vibe from Animas, you know that it's integrated with the Dexcom G4, so you can see CGM readings on the screen. However, the G4 is not compatible with the mobile app. There's no way to look at it on a cell phone, and you can't share or remote monitor that way. The G4 was radio waves. The G5 is Bluetooth, as I understand it. So this is cool because now it means you can use the Vibe and see your glucose readings on your pump as well as on your phone using the G5. And it'll be compatible, as was explained to me by Animas and Dexcom separately, it'll be compatible with the Dexcoms going forward. You know, we expect the G6 out sometime possibly this year. Wow, it feels weird to say 2017 is this year, but much later, if at all this year. So more information on, and notice the slight name change there, the OneTouch Vibe Plus insulin pump. Just approved at the end of December 2016. No word on when shipping will start, but I will link up the official site. The other approval is with Dexcom. So the FDA will now permit the use of the Dexcom G5 mobile CGM to be labeled for insulin dosing without additional finger pricking. So the G5 is actually the first of its kind to be granted this kind of approval. It was cleared only as what they call an adjunct to fingerstick testing for patients 2 years of age and older with diabetes. So we actually talked about this over the summer because an FDA panel okayed it, but this is the full FDA. It still requires calibration with 2 daily finger sticks, but you are not supposed to have to do additional finger stick testing to make treatment decisions. Of course, that's up to you as an individual. This is really important because my understanding is that this approval is really the first step toward enabling people over the age of 65 with Medicare to get Medicare coverage for CGM. It's kind of complicated, but in my opinion, that's the real upshot there. I'm not the only person saying that, of course. And if you're listening going, I came to hear about Victor Garber, I don't even know what a CGM is, or I'd like to learn more. I'm trying to keep this brief here, but you can learn a lot more at diabetes-connections.com. I'll link up a lot more about what we're talking here. I know I'm short-handing it just to kind of get this news out. But we saw so many tech approvals in the last 2 years. It's really nice to see this rolling forward, and I'll keep you posted about what I find doing a deeper dive into these topics in the weeks to come. Okay, quick word from Dexcom now, and isn't it nice when you have some breaking news about both sponsors to pass around? 3 years ago, when Benny turned 9, we started using the Dexcom continuous glucose monitoring system. It was over the winter break 3 years ago. The Dexcom CGM system changed the way we looked at his type 1 diabetes. Being able to continually see and track his glucose levels on a screen has been an amazing experience. I can't tell you how much easier that makes my job as a parent to spot trends and to help my son avoid extreme highs and lows. The Dexcom G5 mobile CGM system is the first of its kind to help you monitor, track, and share glucose continuously and remotely from your compatible smart device, so you can live life on your own terms. For more information, go to Dexcom.com. I need to say a quick thank you to the people at Beyond Type 1, a terrific organization. They helped arrange today's interview with Victor Garber. And I've talked to them before. I will put a link along with this episode on the homepage at diabetes-connections.com. The founders of Beyond Type 1 are Sarah Lucas, Juliette Devavany, celebrity chef Sam Talbot, who's on this season of Bravo's Top Chef, and Nick Jonas. Victor Garber is now an ambassador for them. As you'll hear, they even got him on Instagram. Here's our conversation. And stay tuned. After the first goodbye, there's just a little bit more. My guest today is a star of stage and screen and television. And while Titanic, Alias, and his current role on DC's Legends of Tomorrow may have brought him his biggest fame and audience, Victor Garber is equally respected, if not more, on stage, in musicals, plays, a one-man cabaret act, and he may be the only person I know who has received rave reviews playing both Jesus, as he did in Godspell at the beginning of his career, and the Devil on Broadway's Damn Yankees, while singing and dancing both. And I get the privilege of talking to him because he has type 1 diabetes and is kind enough to share his story with us. Victor Garber, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I'd like to hire you as my publicist. That was a really nice introduction.
Well,
I wasn't sure who you were talking about at the beginning, but thanks. Thank you.
Well, as you will find, I'm a weird combination of comic book geek and musical theater fan. So while we're here to talk about...
I think that's a very healthy combination.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I obviously want to talk about diabetes and your advocacy and your inspiration, but I'd love to mix in a lot about your career because, as I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, how excited I am to talk to you. I'm a big fan. Well,
thank you. I know I'm very happy to talk to you, and particularly because you have a child with type 1 diabetes. And, you know, the thing about it is that as I've gotten older, and I'm now 67, which is hard for me to even say or believe, but it's true. And I just, and because of this Beyond Type 1 website that Sarah Lucas enlisted me to participate with, I just, I so want people to know, and particularly young children, that I think that this is just a part of their life. Does not define them. It is not who they are. It's just a part of their life. And I have achieved pretty much everything I wanted to achieve, and I was diagnosed when I was 12. So, you know, which is, you know, your child was much younger, and that's another reason why my heart just goes out to mothers and fathers who are dealing with this on a, you know, it's traumatic, and it must not be. It has to be, you know, acknowledged that it's a trauma in a child's life and a family's life, and I just want to say that, you know, I'm here to say we did it, you know, and when I was 12, we didn't have anything, you know, there was no website to go to. There was no, you know, we had a local doctor, you know, I was put in the hospital that immediately I left my mother. I remember so clearly, and I have a very poor memory, but I remember her face as my father drove me to the hospital, and she had to commentate a fashion show, and she was standing on the porch of our house, and I think about that when I talk to parents or to children who are just, you know, who have just been diagnosed and who are just getting this news. So it's really important that this organization Beyond Type 1 is you know, honored and people support it. So that's, you know, that's really why I want to do all of this.
And I want to talk more about your diagnosis story and so much of what it was like and was different then. But let's start with Beyond Type 1. I've talked to Sarah Lucas here on the podcast before, and as you listen, you can certainly go back and listen to that episode. This is an advocacy group. They are an inspiring group. They have celebrity chef Sam Talbot. They have Nick Jonas. They have you. They have parents. It's a different kind of group because they also use social media very well. They're on Instagram. They rang the opening bell of the stock exchange. How did you get involved with Beyond Type 1? They're everywhere.
Well, you know, Sarah contacted me. She's very brazen, and she found me, and I was just taken by her enthusiasm, her dedication, and then so I said, yes, of course I'll be a part of this. By the way, not knowing what, you know, I said, I'll also tell you my involvement can only be I'm working really hard on this show in Vancouver, and I'm not available to do all that much, but whatever I can do, I said I'd be, do what I could do. And I'm not involved on social media, but I do have an Instagram, I don't even call it account. I don't even know what it is called, but it's an Instagram thing. And so I said I'll do what I can to help. And then she and her daughter, her beautiful daughter Mary, came to New York, and we had lunch, and I saw Mary with her Omnipod and her Dexcom. She was the one who inspired me to get Dexcom, which the continuous blood glucose meter, blood glucose meter.
Right.
Because I saw her, she was so. When I was a kid, I was 12, and I wasn't embarrassed by it, but I was very private about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to know, and I thought I'm a kind of a freak, and that has changed, and I'm so grateful for that. But I mean, I know there are kids still in rural areas and kids who are isolated who don't have that option, except they can on a computer go to Beyond Type 1 and feel that they're a part of the world and not isolated. And that's crucially important with this disease, because it's so much about your mental attitude and so much about not allowing yourself to get into the slump of the depression, which is no joke. Yeah. It's serious.
So let's go back to, as you mentioned, you felt so different when you were 12, when you were diagnosed, when you saw that look of fear on your mother's face. I'm sure it's a kind of a fuzzy memory around your diagnosis, but what do you remember about going back to your life? I mean, and the routine, this is the early to mid 60s. The routine is different than it was now, for sure.
It's actually, yes, early 60s. Well, it was, there was no such, I mean, you tested your blood glucose with a urine sample. You boiled syringes. We put food on scales. It was long. I don't even think there was a long, regular insulin and a long-lasting insulin, which was very hard to manage your blood glucose levels. And then, and it was, but I think for me, it kind of was an opportunity to learn that I had to kind of grow up really fast, and I couldn't participate in a lot of the things that kids do. And frankly, I'm grateful for that, because I learned a form of self-discipline that I don't think I would have learned quite so early. And I think it's once a kid sort of gets that sense of themselves, and they know that they're taking care of themselves, and that they're respecting their body and what is required. That's a huge thing in life, to be able to start early and do. And I think that's, if there's anything positive about it, that would be it.
Did you feel that way at the time, or were you just kind of 12 years old and angry and feeling weird about testing your urine?
Well, I was confused more than angry, and I think I instinctively knew that. I think that's what kind of got me through the next few years, and then once I was in my late teens, I was actually on my own. I left home when I was 16, which was and it was shocking for my family, although they understood, because I was determined to pursue the life I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, and I have a bunch of, I want to talk about that, because there's a folk singing group, and then you go to New York, but you mentioned your mother was commentating on a fashion show. What was your mother doing?
Well, she was a television celebrity in London, Ontario. It's hard to, her name was Hope Garber, and she had a daily hour television show called At Home with Hope Garber. And, and so I really gained a lot of my, I inherited some, gifts from both my parents. But my mother was sort of the beautiful celebrity and glamorous and all of that. And she sang. She was a great singer, and she never really achieved the dreams that she set out to achieve. But she certainly supported mine, and in a very loving and unselfish way, and I'm grateful to her for that, and my father, who was kind of baffled by by me, and but also I realized that as I got older and did more theater and comedy, that I had inherited that from my father. My father was very funny, and although he was a depressed individual and he was always on medication and he drank too much and all of that stuff, he had a way with a joke that was kind of unique. And I told him once before he died that, I said that I thanked him for that, and so that was a nice thing.
Did your mother live to see you achieve your dreams of acting?
Yes,
oh, that's wonderful.
She came to see me on Broadway a couple of times, and I did tours where I would fly her to Chicago, and she came. So and she was extremely proud and gratified, and and then when she was living in Los Angeles in the last few years of her life, I was doing Alias, the television show out there, and she developed Alzheimer's, which was very difficult and brutal, and it's another disease I'm determined to be an advocate for, because it's really something, as anybody who's involved knows. But so I was in Los Angeles working. And it was fortunate because I got the job just as she started deteriorating, and I was there to be able to sort of get her through that, or so that she was able to be looked after and be at least as comfortable as we could make her.
I'm just thinking about what you said about leaving home at 16 and your parents, your dad being kind of baffled and your mom kind of understanding, because you left to pursue a folk singing career. She must have thought in the back of her head, like, you go get him, kid. You probably should stay in school, but...
Yeah, she did. I mean, because she was a young singer. I mean, when she was a teenager, she was singing in with a band, and so she had that, she knew that I came by it naturally from, and she, of course, they were concerned, and of course they were, they knew that there was nothing that was going to stop me, because I was determined, and I wish I had some of that resolve that I had then, because sometimes I think,
there's nothing.
Where did that go?
There is nothing like a teenage boy for cocky confidence.
I was unstoppable.
Yeah, no doubt. But did diabetes come into play the way? Listen, I'm the mother of an almost 12-year-old boy, so when I think of him doing, I think, he would never take care of himself the way he needs to. He would never do what he is supposed to do. He's still learning, and that kind of thing. Yeah. But did you take care of yourself? If that's not too personal a question, did you do what you needed to do?
No, not at all. No, I can tell you honestly, no, I didn't. I was living at a house with this woman who I had met when I was 15 at a theater course in Toronto, and she had and she told me that she was going to buy this house, and she would rent me a room, and it was like $12 a week, and I stayed with her, and I think her sort of presence gave me a kind of stability, and I didn't, but I didn't obviously because I never really had the kinds of complications that a lot of people do have with type 1. I think I obviously was taking care of myself in some sort of manner. I mean, I never went out drinking or drugs, or I mean, I did certainly my share, but I always knew there was a voice inside of me that always said, hold on, this is not going to, you can't achieve what you want to achieve if you keep doing this sort of thing. And there was always something in me that said enough. I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and I appreciate you being so honest, because listen, I think if you had said, no, it was perfect and I did everything I was supposed to do, that's a different kind of
no. There won't be a book, yeah. I'll tell you that.
Well, and perfection isn't something that I expect from my son. I mean, I hope, of course he is.
Anyone,
he is perfect, he is my son. But
of course he is. Because guess what? We're all perfect.
Right.
and that's what we have to remember we are all individuals, and we all are connected, and we all have to remember that too.
I love
while
that.
We're going through this.
But so the group that you wound up with, this folk singing group, was it really called the Sugar Shop? The Sugar Shop?
Oh yeah, SHOPPE. By the way, because we were kind of elitist. But you can Google if you Google Ed Sullivan Sugar Shop, I think you can see a video of us from that show, and we were actually pretty good. We achieved a lot of success as a Canadian group in the late '60s and early '70s, and yeah, that's what I thought my life was going to be, and then it all changed.
Yeah, but before the funny thing for me is the name, the Sugar Shop. Was it sugar? Did someone else come up with that name, or was it? I mean, nothing to do with diabetes.
That had nothing to do with it. It was just a kind of a weird irony that they called it that, and we laughed about that, I think, a couple of times, and then moved on. It was I don't know, the leader of the group, Peter Mann, came up with that title, and I never really liked the name of the group, not because of diabetes, just I thought it was kind of like a little sweet. Literally.
Did you have a perspective though when you were on Ed Sullivan and Johnny Carson? Looking back on that. I mean, you're talking about, television history and once in a lifetime kind of situations. Did you have that perspective at the time, or were you just having fun?
I think both. I knew that it was major. I thought this doesn't happen to everybody, and I appreciated it. I mean, I remember when we made an album in Los Angeles. We made it at Capitol Records, and they said this is where Frank Sinatra recorded, and Glenn Campbell was at that time just hitting his stride, and Bobby Gentry, who was a great singer-songwriter, had a big hit, Ode to Billy Joe, and we were a part of in that world at the time on Capitol Records, and we recorded it in that tower, and it's just I still kind of marvel at that and think back to those days quite fondly. But it was. I was a kid, really. Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to think. So the next, the bigger milestone that I was going to ask you about was doing Godspell, right? Godspell in Canada on stage, and then the movie. How old were you when the movie came out? Do you remember?
I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, you were very young.
Yeah, I was young, and New York. But once that movie happened, and there was a lot in between, but. The Toronto company of Godspell, of course, which is sort of infamous now. But,
you know what? Yeah, I did, and I skipped over all those people. I can't believe I did that. Let's talk about that first, because that's Andrea Martin, and it was Martin Short. Talk to me about that cast.
Yes, that was the cast was kind of we were all kids, and it was Marty Short, Eugene Levy, Gilda Radner, Andrea Martin, myself, and I think. Yeah, there were other people in that cast but also Paul Schaefer was discovered at that audition, the final audition. He was playing for somebody, and Stephen Schwartz said, "Who's that guy playing the piano?" and basically hired him to be the musical director of Godspell.
Wow,
because he's a genius. And so we all come from that world, and we all still, those of us who are still alive. We still we see each other all the time, and it's kind of, I'm actually going to see Andrea next week, and Marty and Eugene. We were just at Marty's son's wedding. It's very, very tight, and it's
that doesn't.
I can't even describe how much those people mean to me in my life.
It's almost like I would assume either when you go to college and you have your tight friends, or when you're right out of school and trying to work your way up. We have those people. Your people just happen to be super talented and famous like you. But it's amazing when you have that group of friends, and I love that you've all stayed in touch. Tell Andrea Martin that it was absolutely amazing to watch her on the, was it the trapeze? What did she do in Pippin?
Oh,
that
yes.
Crazy.
Yes, she was on trapeze. Yes, she was. She won the Tony, and she's got a new show that's on NBC. Hopefully you'll be seeing soon if they pick it up. And they did pick it up. It'll be on the air soon. She's remarkable, and I feel, when I'm in their company, I feel like, and by the way, I remember even at that time knowing that I was surrounded by people who were inordinately talented. I mean, Gilda was like a phenomenon even before anybody knew who she was. You know, I remember her, and I knew her very well, and I would sit just, you know, in rapture next to her while she would talk about something and make me laugh so hard I couldn't even speak.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm supposed to bring you back to talk about diabetes, although we could talk about this all day. When you were with that group, when you were a young actor, and Godspell, you played Jesus, this was not a small role, this is not a small show. What was it like to try to manage at that time? And I'll ask you again later, because as you've mentioned, you now have an insulin pump, you use a continuous glucose monitor. Do you remember what you did? Did you just kind of have juice nearby?
Yes, I do remember, and it became kind of a joke around. There were little bottles or jars of honey on the stage, and whenever I would forget a line or goof up or anything, Marty would say, "Get the honey, get the honey." It became like the joke. Although sometimes I did need it, and there it was. I just would take a spoonful of honey and continue. I mean, it was you know, challenging. There's no getting around it. And I think the discipline of the theater was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because there's no way you can, you know, you have to be in pristine condition to do 8 shows a week like that. You can't screw up, you know, so between the yoga, I was doing yoga, I was, you know, eating carefully, I was, you know, doing the best I could. And I managed to do it, and I'm still kind of in awe, shocked that I was able to do it. But I think, again, I had a bigger purpose. You know, I think I was fortunate in that I always knew what I wanted to do, and I'm sort of was aware of that even as a teenager, that all my friends were kind of they didn't really have any direction. And I did, and I think that's really important for kids for parents to really allow a child to pursue what they really feel passionate about, even if it seems quirky or odd, or just at least, you know, listen, I'm not a parent, so I can't imagine how difficult that would be. But I do think, and I know that the options now are so many that it's really hard to tell. But, you know, a child knows if something, you know, they just know inherently, and to be encouraged to think about that and to say what really makes you happy. You know, what do you really love to do? You know, whether it's finger painting or mountain climbing or woodworking or whatever it is. You know, it's just, I think I was lucky.
Yeah, it is a wonderful thing. I knew in 7th grade, and I remember when I got the idea that I was going to do some kind of news reporting and then be in broadcasting, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me, because
there you
are. Well, here I was able to do it. I had a dream career. I still think there's more ahead, and I love doing the podcast, but I was also lucky because before that I was going to be an actress, like many young women who grow up right outside of New York City and are privileged enough to see a lot of Broadway shows. It helps to have talent, though, and when you can't really sing or dance.
But you have to pursue it in order to learn that.
Exactly, and my parents let me do it. And I was very fortunate. I had so much fun. And you know what? You get something out of whatever you pursue. I got confidence and skills. And that's what I tell my kids, as you said, try it. If you like it, there's something about it you'll always like, or you'll always use. And if not, you tried it. You'll no regrets.
That's why I have such, you know, that's why the budget cuts in education and all of that, and you know, musical instruments not being available to children in school and all of that stuff. The arts, that's crucial to our society, and if kids aren't given that, that's exactly what happens, is that they lose confidence. They don't have there's no avenue to find out what they want to do, unless they're given the opportunity to get up on in a school play, or play an instrument with a band, or dance in the gym. All of that stuff is It just makes me insane.
I'm laughing just because, again, we could do it all day. But I will tell you, if you'll indulge me for a second, that my son, who was thinking about playing football this fall, decided instead, and I'm so excited, he's in the school play. And they're doing a musical. Well, he's one of these kids. He'll try everything. He really does. He likes sports. He likes art. He's still in a very open age, and he has decided to be an actor. So I'll keep you posted.
Great, listen, and that can take him so many places. But if he's allowed to pursue that, to experience that, he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And he may be an actor, or he may be a director, or a producer, or a writer.
Right.
It's like there's nothing negative about a kid pursuing what they love.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so back to my diabetes stuff, but I did want to ask you, when you mentioned that your castmates, your friends knew about you having type 1 and needing the honey, as Martin Short said. I don't imagine you announced that you have type 1, but did you tell people quietly once you had a job, or was it just part of who you are? You got hired, whether it was Godspill or other things down the road, you got hired and then it was part of the conversation? I mean, how did you handle that? You do seem like a very private person, even though now you're talking very openly about it.
Well, yes, I probably was. When I think back, I remember when I was doing Alias, I often think back because, yes, I would always tell the stage manager of a play, I'm a diabetic and I often need orange juice, so I'm just saying, during rehearsal, or to please be aware of that, and no, but everybody was like completely fine. I think what really people don't understand about type 1 diabetes is how serious it is, and how and there's not a lot out there about for people. They don't really understand it, and I think that's part of what type 1, beyond type 1, is focused on, is advocacy and supporting the path to a cure, but also education about what type 1 is. And people, when I say to them, I'm a type 1 diabetic, they say, so that means you what? You can't have sugar, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yes. And, it's much more complicated than that. And because most of what we see on television is, commercials for type 2 diabetes, which is, of course, serious and an epidemic, but it's not the same.
Right. Right.
And that's where people don't really understand. You
started to mention Alias, and if I could be nosy, was there something there when you started on that show?
Well, no. It was Jennifer Garner who knew immediately if my blood sugar was low. She was like uncanny. She would say, "You need some sugar." I said, "You need some juice." I said, "No, I don't. Because you get kind of angry. Your blood sugar goes down." And I said, "I'm fine. And then she said, "Get him some juice." And she was always right. So it's and people start to get a sense of what it is and say, are you okay? You don't seem. Is everything okay? And I'm less defensive about it now, and I'm thinking, maybe I'm not, And then, but now I have, obviously, we've come so far technologically with Omni. I'm on an Omnipod and Dexcom, and now with this, any minute now, they're going to be releasing this. I think it's the Medtronic pump, which also is the glucose monitor in one.
Yeah.
And that's huge progress, obviously, and we need a cure.
Oh, yeah, but I agree. I mean, we obviously need a cure, but in the meantime, it's nice to have the technology that is catching up a little bit. We use a Dexcom and a different insulin pump, the Animas Ping, and it's just amazing to have the options, to have this technology. And I apologize again. I have lots of nosy questions. I didn't realize you used a CGM. I didn't realize you used the Dexcom. You mentioned Mary Lucas, Sarah's daughter, earlier. When did you get the Dexcom? She pushed you to do that?
Only a few months ago.
Oh, that's great.
I've only worn it for like 4. I think 4. I'm really bad with time. I think it's about 4 months. I think I actually have to get a new what's the
transmitter, the little piece.
Yes. The little piece. I think because they're for like 6 months or something.
It depends on which model you have. Some are 6 months and some are 3 months, and
I guess it'll let me know.
It'll definitely let you know. That's really funny.
But yeah, no, I was resistant because vanity being like I just like the Omnipod, because I can't, like I can't do well, not that I would take my shirt off anywhere, but especially in a film. But if I had to do a scene without a shirt, I'd have to put that pod somewhere, on my leg or something and I wear it on my arm and the Dexcom on my stomach, and that limits me in terms of, but fortunately no one wants to see my torso, so I'm okay. But if I wasn't, I would have to, or if something came up where I had to, get out of a shower, that would be a consideration. But so far that hasn't happened, and I hope to God it doesn't.
But when we see you on Legends of Tomorrow, I mean, there's a lot of, and I want to talk more about that. What a great, fun show. But there's a lot of running around. Are you wearing, I assume now I'm going to be looking to see if I can see the outline, but are you wearing a pod and a Dexcom during the taping and filming of the show?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Always. Yeah, always. I mean, first of all, you can't, the Omnipod is very small, and it's actually, hopefully will get smaller, but it's hard to distinguish. I mean, people feel it when they pat my arm.
Right.
They say, "What's that? What's that?" And the Dexcom, is quite small, and I don't wear. Fortunately,
well, that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking about your costume. You're not like the Flash, where you're wearing one of these skin tight.
No, I could never be in spandex. I could never. I wouldn't take the job, and no one wants to see me in it. By the way, that's the great thing about this role is that it's the younger people that have to do all of that running around. I do some running, but not
Well,
much.
we love The Flash, with the show that your character that you play now is kind of started on TV. It's the one show that we really watch as a family. And so
Good.
it was wonderful. It's a great family show. And we love comic booky stuff. And then, of course, when you did Legends of Tomorrow, that's like one of these scenery-chewing, campy, comic booky. But you're not, again, as I was asking that question, nobody sees my son's Dexcom or pump generally, even though he has a tubed pump. He always has like a loose shirt on. You can never see anything. And I was thinking about your costume. It's not as though you're not wearing the spandex, so you wouldn't see that. But
Right.
but
No, I don't wear tight-fitting clothes, and I'm usually in a sweater. And also, the costume designer is very clever, and she knows. I mean, I said, by the way, I wear this, and I live with this, and so just to be aware of it. And everybody is so accommodating, and now I've actually shown people. I've gone from not talking about. Just like say, do you want to see my Dexcom? It's really amazing because I'm so impressed by the technology, and I think people should know, that this is what's happening and what it means, and it's also, it's changed my life.
We'll talk about that if you don't mind. In the last few months when you've used it, what has it changed for you?
Well, because I wake up in the middle of the night, and I can look on my phone because I said I will only do this if I don't have to carry another meter around with me or. Like I had the PDM for the Omnipod, which is where I could do the occasional blood test every 12 hours now that I have the Dexcom. But it's on my phone. I can look at my phone and say before dinner and say, I can wait, and I know how to balance the how much insulin to give because of the Dexcom. And I don't have to test my blood at the dinner table.
Yeah. Did you?
Which is a nice change.
Yeah. I found we started using it about 3 years ago. My son was 9 at the time, and I actually found the first month to be rather overwhelming because there was so much information, and it was hard not to overreact. And now I think it's a great tool we use. I mean, after that first initial, like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It was much easier. Did you have that experience as well?
Yes, I did. I mean. But so I would I actually the alarm system I have to kind of because I'm often like at 80 or 79 and then the alarm goes off. I know I can change it, but it's like I'm okay unless it goes like I'm okay at 70 really. I just but I now that I have it on vibrate, it's better.
Yeah.
Because I can't. That noise is so and also I'm usually on the set, so I have to kind of keep it off. But yes, I just I check it so often. I just go and I kind of now I mean, I'm in sync with the device, as you say. It just takes a little time.
It's a very, very cool. I happen to love it, and it's helped me really steady out my son's overnights and things like that, because you get more comfortable being at a lower level even when you know that the alarm's going to go off if anything wonky happens. Although I will not change the alarm. I mean, I know there's some really great, crazy ones in there. Have you gone through the alarms and seen the different options? I just keep it on the one it comes with.
Yeah, I do too. I'm that way with phone. I can't. The whole technology is my enemy.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's my friend, but it's also I'm useless with it. That's why, when Sarah said, "Oh, we could Skype today," I said, "I don't even know. I don't know how to Skype. I can only FaceTime, because you just push a button and you see the person. I don't know how to."
That's funny.
Download.
Well, you're doing so well. So I mean, come on, it's all good. So let me ask you a couple of questions that I got from listeners who were really excited that I was about to talk to you. In fact, most of the questions were, "Please tell him that I loved him in this," or "I just think he's fantastic in that." But one person did ask me. It was James who wrote in, Titanic, of course, great movie that you're so well known for. Titanic seemed like a rough shoot, James writes. Did you have an issue with diabetes or anything else on the set?
Well, the fact is, what I do in life is very. The theater was a much better place for diabetes than film, because yes, the Titanic was very difficult because it was mostly night shoots, and so it completely upended my schedule and my life, and I just had to adapt, and I learned how to do that. And there were times, but I will tell you a really sweet story. One night we were way behind as we were. I was there for over 5 months.
Wow.
In Rosarito, Mexico, and they were mostly night shoots. So we would go to work around 4 p.m, go through hair and makeup, and then oftentimes not work until and oftentimes not work at all, and then be released at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. saying, "We're not going to get to your scene." And so there was a lot of that. So that's one thing. But one night we were on the ship and doing a very difficult, huge scene with a lot of people, and they decided to postpone the food, the lunch break, and we were working, and I didn't get. I thought, I'm going to have to get, and I couldn't even get to the craft service table because it was so far away from where we were shooting, and Leonardo DiCaprio, who knew I was a diabetic, and who saw the look in my face, he was able, because he wasn't in that part of the scene, he was able to go get a styrofoam thing for his food, and he came back to the set, and I said, I'm okay. I've got to get some food because I'm a diabetic. I said, here, and he gave me his food, and I tell that story with such gratitude and love for him, because he was so sweet and so he cared, that I was okay.
Yeah.
And that was just one example of someone being kind and being and conscious.
Yeah.
Which he's proven to be, obviously, in the world. And that was just my little interaction.
That's wonderful.
And, it was a nice story to tell.
And I know that as you listen, you're here to hear Victor Garber tell his stories. Victor, can you indulge me I have a quick Leonardo DiCaprio story, which is very similar, actually. Yes. About 1992 or 1993, I was a part-time reporter at WSYR in Syracuse. I was still in college, and I was working for them on the weekends, and I was the world's worst reporter. I didn't know where I was going. Nobody trained me. I had to drive a news truck, and sometimes I'd forget to take the antenna down if you did a live shot. So they sent me to cover the opening of the movie This Boy's Life. Tobias Wolff, the author, it was based on his book. It was one of Leonardo DiCaprio's very first movies, and they opened it in Syracuse because that's where Tobias Wolff is from. And I got there after it was over. I mean, everybody was gone. It was just one of these disastrous things where I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And there was a really, just a casual-looking guy standing there, and he said, I had the big deck recorder back in the day and the big microphone. He said, were you here for the news conference? And I said, yeah, but I must have missed it. He said, well, my son is still here playing video games. He was Leonardo DiCaprio. So I got to talk to him, and it was the weekend of the Oscars. And this ends so badly because I don't have the tape. But I asked him, do you ever think you'll win an Oscar? And he said, it's not about the Oscars, it's about the work. And he was just so lovely. And, he was a kid and I was an idiot. So it was a lot of fun, but that tape is gone. But what a nice guy. So I'm glad to hear that you ate his lunch.
No, he's remarkable. Remarkable, and gave me his lunch, yes. And, I'll never forget it.
That's terrific. Okay, so moving on to other listener questions. Michelle wanted to know about eating in terms of type 1. She's asking, are you a vegan? But I'm also curious if you've learned over the years if there are just some things that, if you are a vegan, or if there are just things that you do eat, you don't eat. Everybody's such an individual in this respect with diabetes.
Well, first of all, I'm not a vegan. And secondly, I eat pretty much, what I've realized is that if I eat bread or carbohydrates, my blood sugar will spike, or not always spike, but will move up, and it will take sometimes a couple of hours, and I'm already asleep by that time, and then I have to get up and give myself insulin, or a bolus. But I've been trying for the last couple of years to just not eat bread, just not, or as little as possible. And I love bread; it's hard. And rice is something I just, if I have some sushi, or sashimi, I guess, which is the one that's got the rice around.
Yeah, the sushi has the rolls, the sushi rolls.
Yeah, the rolls. I find that brown rice will be less spiky than white rice. So I don't eat white rice if I can, but I do eat oatmeal in the morning, and I have to just give myself more insulin. But I'm not as, I will have a bite of anything. I'll have a bite of dessert. I know if I have a spoonful of ice cream, I just can't have the bowl, or as much as I want. So I'm pretty, and I also know that if I'm trying to get, the routine I'm on lately is I will have, cereal in the morning because I like granola and I like fruit on it, but it's very hard to find granola with low sugar. Right. And I found one with like 4 grams, which is pretty low. From most of them have 18 or 25 or whatever. It's just shocking how much sugar is in everything, as I'm sure you know. But anyway, so then as soon as I have breakfast, like within an hour, I'm doing stretches and yoga exercises in my apartment, because that will it will bring the blood sugar down to what it should be. So you have to kind of figure out your own system and see and experiment and see what works and what doesn't, and just be aware, be conscious, and I drink wine. I don't find that spikes my blood sugar. I'll have a couple of glasses of wine at dinner, but I take that into account when I'm giving myself the bolus for dinner, and it's, I've been doing this for so long, I kind of pretty much, and there are days when it's inexplicable, suddenly you think, how could my blood sugar have gone up? It's just, I don't get it, and you just kind of, deal with it. But, so every day is a learning experience.
I always say, well, occasionally someone will ask me for advice, or Benny and I, my son Benny, will make a plan, and I'll say, well, it's another science experiment. We'll go for it, and we'll find out. Sometimes you just don't know. So Michelle wanted to know, I would like to hear, let me read the whole comment because it's a really nice one. Michelle says, he is one of our T1D heroes. We've been fans since the very first episode of Alias, and we'd like to hear about his relationship with his endocrinologist and other medical or health professionals, like a nutritionist or a trainer or a chef. Do you mind sharing that kind of thing? Because it sounds like,
I don't mind.
As you said, you've been doing this for a long time, but do you have like a health team that you continually learn from?
Well, here's the thing about me. I go to an endocrinologist in New York when I'm there. Her name is Alias Brett. She's a wonderful doctor. And really what I learned from all of that is that I am my own, I manage it. I have to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
She can say, she was the one that she said 2 years ago, I think you should be on Dexcom. It took me 2 years, but I did it. She does my blood tests, and the last blood tests I got were, she said, you're really doing well.
Great.
So I thought, okay, well then whatever I'm doing is working, so I'm just going to continue doing it, but I'm more. I do go to see her when I'm in New York, but I'm in Vancouver, and I don't see anyone here. Just because if I had a problem, there is a doctor who is part of the production that I would go and see, and he writes the prescriptions for insulin and test strips and all of the things that I need here. And if I have a problem, I can see him. But basically, I've been sort of managing it on my own, and then I go for approval. I've worked out with great trainers. I've gone to acupuncturists. And I've Pilates. I'm big on Pilates. I work with someone in New York, and that I find is it's perfect for someone my age, and also I have a lot of knee ailments and shoulder ailments, and that's I believe in Pilates.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I believe. Yeah, so I kind of and now as I said, I have this routine. I try to do every day, except that if I have a 5 a.m. pickup, I can't do it. But I do 40 minutes of stretching and some push-ups and sit-ups and just knee exercises and things that I've learned over the years to do, and that and it makes a huge difference. And I also believe in meditation. That's something I try to do every day, and whatever that means for you. There's no one way to meditate, but it is basically to stop the noise in your head, because that to me can be very damaging.
I agree. I wanted to ask you about frustration with type 1, because nobody's perfect. And you mentioned these days that happen where you just don't understand what your blood sugar is doing. I'm not going to ask you if you get frustrated or burned out, because you're not a robot. That must happen. How do you handle it? Is the meditation and yoga, do you find that helps?
Yeah, usually the frustration comes from not understanding why it's going so low or going so high, and so, like one day I was on a train and it just kept going up and up and up, and there was nothing I could do, and I was on a train going somewhere, and I kept giving myself more insulin, and it wasn't going down, and I kind of realized that I had to change the pod, and I was only gone for like part of the day, and so I didn't bring everything with me to do that, and I couldn't do that till I got home, and I thought, well, I have to. So now I'm more conscious of taking, a vial of insulin wherever I go, and I do have pods in my bag that I carry, but sometimes I forget to bring the insulin, and so I'm just more conscious of that, and every. But that's the frustrations. Yes, I get very frustrated, and I get very overwhelmed at times, and yes, the meditation or just breathing is a really good thing to stop and breathe and know that that there is a solution, that you'll get there eventually, that even at the moment it doesn't feel like you will. And it's a discipline. It's a way of not allowing your mind to spin out and to go into that kind of insanity that we all go into. And by the way, I do it every day. I'm just saying I haven't. It's just part of life.
Right.
But I feel like I'm conscious of it, so it doesn't have the same power it used to have.
That's good perspective. A couple more questions. I know we're running really long here. It's just been wonderful. But my son had a question for you. As I said, he's decided to be an actor, and he wanted to know. Keep in mind he's 11. Why do you go back and forth between movies and Broadway, and which do you like more?
Well, I haven't been on Broadway for many years, and I've been doing television and occasional film for many years since I left the last Broadway. I did the last Broadway show, and I think if you can do theater it's the best training you'll ever get, and it will put you, first of all, as a diabetic, it's disciplined. You have hours. You finish at a certain time, and it was honestly for me the greatest time, and I miss it. Now I'm doing, but I'm making more money doing television than I could in the theater, and that's part of why I'm doing television. And also, people seem to still want to hire me. So the reason I'm doing it is because people ask me to do it, and I think as long as they keep asking, I have to consider it because. But it's a much harder as type 1 to do television because the hours are so insane. Or movies, it's exactly, they're insane. I once had a 3 a.m. pickup. 3 a.m. I was going to work, and I thought, well, how do I do that? But fortunately, with the technology that we have now, you can do it because you don't have to eat, breakfast. You don't have, you can maneuver all of that. And I think theater is the greatest training you'll ever get for an actor, and also you'll decide if you really want to do it.
That's a great point. Do you enjoy now talking about type 1 diabetes? I mean, it seems as though the talking about it part, as you said, you were embarrassed for a while when you were a kid, you felt weird. Now you're rolling up your sleeve to show people the Dexcom. Is it to the point where it's kind of fun for you to meet kids, as you said, and talk to people like Sarah and Mary Lucas?
Well, yes. What it is it's inspiring to me because I realize, first of all, that we're all part of a community, and I feel that I am a part of that, and that's a very comforting feeling for all of us, I think. And fun, I would not be the word I would use. I would just say I feel like. In a way, a responsibility, and also I look at the faces of these young kids on Beyond Type 1, the posts they put, and I am just so moved by it. I just find it, it's really for me about kids now. It's about little kids who are dealing with this, and I want to be the face of an older person, much older person, who has been living with this disease and has succeeded or is succeeding. I'm still in it, and I'm still doing it, and I just want people to know that is that's an option, and so really that's what it's about for me. I mean, I'd rather talk about this than my career, frankly, because I find that sort of okay, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that, but now. I don't find it the most important thing in my life. I really don't.
Well, it's interesting, too, because it sounds to me, and I don't mean this, I want to be careful how I say it, but it sounds to me like you are also always learning. I mean, you are, you know about your own diabetes, you know how to do it, but to go with more modern management, to try something like the Dexcom or to, in the Omnipod, I mean, do you still think over the next few years here, I mean, there's more stuff coming out, as we already mentioned. It's hard to think that you're still learning about type 1 and everything that you can do.
I think that the minute you think you've learned everything, you might as well just stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand that concept. Every day, I learn more about myself and about the world around me, and I'm so grateful to have that curiosity and that interest in life. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine retiring or, I don't even understand what that means. I just, for me, and also I know a lot of people who have retired and gone on to do something that they've always wanted to do, where I'm already doing that. So I feel very, very blessed, and I accept type 1 as this is an opportunity. I've been given an opportunity to learn more about myself than I would have had I not had this disease. And so I'm seeing it in a positive light because I think that's what's gotten me through, frankly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate the time you spent with me. It was wonderful speaking with you. Thanks.
Well, it was a delight to speak with you. I have to say, I did enjoy this enormously, so thank you.
After that official goodbye, I took a deep breath and we kept chatting for just a few more minutes. And I wanted to ask him about something that was personal to me. You'll hear it in a minute. And it really turned into a nice moment. Even though the interview was supposed to be over, we were still recording, and he agreed that I could share this. So, quick setup. There is a Stephen Sondheim show and song called Anyone Can Whistle. The song is about how things that are simple for some people are really difficult for other people. And of course, there's deeper meaning about being able to, emotionally attach or emotionally express yourself. It's a very simple but very heavy song. So Garber performed it at a 2-night show, and then I heard about it on another podcast. So here's a little bit of the rest of our talk, and I apologize. I'm so nervous here. I am talking even faster than usual. Who thought that could be possible?
I did 2 nights at 54 Below because I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do it. And then I did it, and I haven't done it since. And I doubt I'll ever do it again.
The reason I'm asking is because I was listening to a podcast and they interviewed you for it, and you were talking about the 54 Below. And I misunderstood. I thought it was a longer running situation. But you sang, the clip they played was you singing Anyone Can Whistle. And
From the actual evening?
It was either, I don't know. They didn't credit it. They just played it on the way out. Here's the interview. And then...
because I've never recorded that song, so they must.
Oh, well, it was just the chorus of it. I don't want to get anyone in legal trouble, but
no, it's
okay. So they play this song, and I burst into tears in the car because that's one of the songs I sang when I was trying to be an actress 100 years ago. I'm like 13 years old trying to find meaning in that song, but for some reason, listening to you talk about the show and your life experience, and then singing that song. I don't know. It came back to type 1 diabetes and my son in some way, because there are some things that are so simple for everybody else that are not simple for people with type 1. And I'm wondering if when you sing a song like that, or you have an artistic moment, I don't know what to call it, a movie moment, do you ever think of your life experience with type 1 and then put it into the performance?
Well, I think it does. I think it probably happens instinctively without me. No, I don't intellectually think that, but everything, type 1 is a part of me, and so therefore everything I do, it's affected everything. So whether it's my tenacity, whether it's my determination, whether it's my gratitude, all of that is type 1 is a part of, and so. Yes, but it's not an intellectual or a conscious awareness. But just on a side note, Anyone Can Whistle, that album, the Stephen Sondheim show, was the reason I wanted to be in New York, and that's and my affiliation with Stephen Sondheim. That's where it came from, that song and that show. So it's no coincidence we're talking.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Well, this was a pleasure. And if you don't mind, may I use that part in the interview? I was still taping. Okay, I told you I ended it, so I have to make sure. Okay, wonderful. Well, wow. Well, thank you so much. I have to mention, I was very nervous. You are a pleasure and so sweet. Thank you so much, and I hope to meet you someday.
Talk to you. I am really grateful that we could do this, and and we'll do it again, I'm sure.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
Amazing. He was just great. And now I have to have him back on so I can hear the whole story about Sondheim and coming to New York. But I will link up that other podcast, which is all showbiz stuff. And you can hear Victor Garber singing that bit of Anyone Can Whistle. I loved talking to him. I mean, besides all the behind the scenes stuff, Andrea Martin and Marty Short, Gilda Radner, Leonardo DiCaprio, and all the fun stuff that he's doing now. It's really, I enjoy talking to people who have lived a long time with type 1. Their perspective is invaluable because it's difficult. And I really enjoy when people are real about it. They don't make it sound easy. They don't gloss over the hard parts, and he certainly didn't. So that was a good one for me, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you like what you hear, please go ahead and share this with somebody else who is touched by diabetes. And you can find us all over the place, social media-wise, Facebook, Stacey Sims and Diabetes Connections, on Twitter as well. And whatever podcast app you're listening to, if that's how you're listening, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a review if you would like to. In the weeks to come here, adventure on the high seas, and I'll talk a little bit more about our adventure vacation. I'll talk to a tell it like it is, no BS, diabetes advice columnist. Of course, we'll be checking in on the latest tech, and a spin on the classic fairy tale book author. Lots of good stuff to come. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Diabetes Connections. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here next week.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.